Hi all, and welcome to Skylaris' Star Citizen Flight School, where you will learn to fly with finesse and grace, with confidence and agility, and absolutely will not crash or blow up, because I never do that. But anyway, flight. It's probably the reason why you bought this game. The freedom fantasy of owning your own ship, taking to the stars to visit and explore other planets, leave your cares behind. It's what Star Citizen gameplay promises at its very best, and it delivers in spades. The flight aspect of this game is phenomenal. To fly your ship in this game is, to be blunt, a simple joy. So let's get started. Let's learn how to fly. If you're following this up from my last beginner starting guide, you have your newly purchased shiny starter package ship and you're eager to fly it. And if you're anything like me, you're probably scared to death that you'll crash your ship on the way out. And don't worry, the first time, you probably will. But go ahead and get in your new ship. Once you get in your ship, you can hit R to make it flight ready. This will turn the power on, bring the engines online, and illuminate your HUD. You can see that you have many MFD or multifunctional displays, all of which can be manipulated by holding F to scroll in and hitting menu to change the function. You can change around the screens to be whatever you want, but unfortunately you'll have to do it each time you get in the ship, because they won't save. Before we take off though, let's familiarize ourselves with the basics. W will engage the throttle up and S will reverse it. You can strafe left and right with A and D respectively. Q and E will roll your ship to the left or right. To engage your upward thrusters, you can use the space bar and the left control to engage your downward thrusters. X is your space brake. Now before we take off for the first time, let's talk about thrust and velocity. But in order to talk about that, we should really be in space. So let's take a break and head on over to the Nomad. There are two components to be aware of here. Your thrust is the circular gauge to the left. Your velocity is this vertical line to the right. This is your actual speed. Increasing your thrust increases your speed, unless you're in decoupled mode, which I'll explain later. This took forever for me to wrap my head around personally. You can control your min and max speed with the middle mouse wheel. Your speed will never go beyond what you set your max speed to with the limit line. If you move above the middle line, your ship becomes harder to steer. So for best maneuverability, keep it below that when needed, and then bring it higher when you need speed, and you can fly relatively straight. Got that? Good. Let's go back to the hangar and prepare to take off. The first thing you're going to want to do is request permission to take off. You have to do this every time you take off or land. There are two ways you can do this. You can hit F1 to bring up your Mobi glass and go to the comms, and navigate to the Friendly tab to request permissions. Or I personally like to put the comms panel on my screen. That way if you're flying you don't have to navigate away from the screen and potentially crash. Okay, we have permission to take off. Let's use everything we've learned. Gently press the spacebar to lift off, and once you do, hit the N key to raise your landing gear. You don't want to be flying around with that out. Lift out of the hangar. Once out, point to the sky, increase your speed wheel, and lay on the thrust with W to head out into space. And you're free. One thing I've seen confuse other new players is VTOL mode, or vertical takeoff and landing. Some ships have this, others don't. In ships that do, when taking off, the vertical thrusters are engaged so that you move directly upwards from the landing point. Once you get to your desired altitude, you can press K to turn it off, so that you can move horizontally again. You can see this easily demonstrated with my Cuddy's thrusters. In others, it's not so obvious, but the concept is still the same. So if your ship supports this mode, don't forget to turn it off after you take off, or flying straight will really be a pain. Now let's talk about quantum travel. The verse is vast, and you can't travel to everything on impulse engines alone. So to travel long distances, we use a quantum drive. This is engaged by pressing B. You can see all the jump points around you that you can quantum travel to. Point at one and let the quantum drive spool. Once it's calibrated, you can hold B to engage the drive. Keep in mind this will use quantum fuel, not your normal hydrogen fuel. This will then bring you into quantum travel and to your destination. The time it takes to travel will vary on the distance to your destination and the size of your engine. You can upgrade your engine to have quicker travel times. You can also set waypoints using the map. Press F2 to bring up the map and then select your destination. It'll show in the upper left the waypoints to get there and how much fuel you'll use in the process. I also want to talk about the OM markers. Sometimes when you're near a planet, you can see the jump point you want to go to is blocked by the planet. You can navigate around the planet using the OM markers that are placed around it. For example, we couldn't get to Port Olisar because Crusader was blocking it, but we are able to use the OM marker to navigate around Crusader, and now Port Olisar is unblocked. One thing we should go over is the difference between coupled and decoupled mode. The standard default is coupled mode, but you can switch this to decoupled mode by pressing V on your keyboard. In short, in coupled mode, your ship behaves more like an airplane, and more like what you're probably used to in most flight sim games. Your forward movement is coupled to your thrust, and your direction moves the direction that your nose is pointed. In space, however, spaceships don't really behave like that. Remember our friend Newton in his conservation of momentum, which states, the momentum of a system is constant if no external forces are acting on that system. Decoupled mode takes this into consideration. Your forward momentum is dependent on the direction you were moving, and the direction is controlled by thrust, not by the direction your nose is pointing. Why is this useful? Besides the added realism, it means you can do cool shit when dogfighting, such as making a 180-degree turn to shoot someone behind you while continuing to move in the direction you were traveling. Just be careful you don't prematurely become one with an asteroid. You can also use it for conserving fuel when traversing long distances. Just get up to speed and decouple, effectively turning off your engines but maintaining your speed and not using up fuel. If you're just starting out, stick with coupled mode. There will be time to play with decoupled later. And that is the basics of flight. I hope that helped you out. As always, if you like this video and want to see more, please give me a like and a subscription. And if you want to try the game, feel free to use my code on the screen or link in the description. Until next time, my friends.